still people from this shooting who haven't left the house. They're not going out and getting help.
What are they looking for in a high-level, deep dive investigation?
There's three things. So character, reputation, and loyalty.
There could be gators, there could be snakes, but just gonna have to suck it up. I want the shot.
Volunteers in Indonesia are burying the dead in a mass grave after a magnitude 7.5 earthquake triggered a tsunami and killed at least 844 people. That number is expected to rise as rescuers reach remote villages. Disaster agency officials say a buoy system designed to detect tsunami waves was switched off 6 years ago because they didn't have the money to keep it running. Italy's plan to tackle poverty will involve prepaid cards, loaded with up to $900 per month. The government's so-called citizens' wage will only go to retirees or people who do community service and agree to take one of the first 3 job offers they get. The Department of Justice is fighting California's latest move to break away from Trump's America. Hours after the state enacted sweeping net neutrality protections, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit accusing California of subverting last year's FCC repeal and arguing it doesn't have the right to regulate interstate commerce.
A brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA and the NAFTA trade agreements with an incredible new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement called USMCA. It sort of just works, MCA.
With Canada jumping on, the agreement formerly known as NAFTA incentivizes car makers to make more parts on the continent, slightly opens Canada's dairy market to the U.S., and makes it easier for Mexican workers to unionize. The agreement still needs to be ratified by each country, and despite Canada's protests, Trump's steel tariffs are still in play.
Jill, Delaney, and Liz have been going to country music concerts together for over a decade.
How are you doing?
Good. But tonight's different. It's their first time seeing Jason Aldean since last October. The Route 91 Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas was the site of the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history. 58 people were killed. Hundreds were injured. But there were 22,000 people at that festival, and a lot of them are still trying to work through what happened.
Having this group behind us to get through this milestone is really why we're here today.
One week after the shooting, the 3 friends started going to free, regular therapy sessions held in a country music dance hall.
Welcome, my country family! Okay,
Run by Dr. Shiva Ghaed, a clinical psychologist who usually works with the military, treating combat-related trauma.
And we're gonna make a big circle.
This is their 1-year check-in.
I knew I had anxiety and whatnot to see Jason Aldean, but I didn't realize that after Jason Aldean, how much lighter I was going to feel. I don't want to say better, but definitely lighter.
When the shooting started, what were you thinking?
I thought it was fireworks.
We thought it was fireworks.
Yeah. Liz knew that it was.
No, that's gunshots. Well, we knew instantly because the lady in front of us was shot.
Right. So then we knew.
The lady in front of you was shot?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Somebody threw me to the ground and we crawled into groups, just trying to get cover. I remember seeing glass, but I don't know. And I just thought to myself, okay, don't get shot and don't cut yourself on glass. And I was covered, unfortunately, head to toe with blood, and not just mine. That's hard. And I just knew I needed to get it off me.
A lady walked by with her phone and said, "Have you seen my son? I can't find him." And I just turned white. because I did see her son. And I couldn't tell her that. I feel like that wasn't my place to tell her. But also I was afraid she would grab my hand and say, come with me and show me where. And so I feel like that was selfish of me not to say, because I was scared for my own safety that she was going to take me back into the venue, and I didn't want to go back into the venue. And so I told her no. I haven't seen him. And she just kept on walking. And I think that was one of my biggest regrets.
How have you thought about that recently?
I think about it every day.
Really?
Yeah. I think about it every day.
When did you first decide, hey, we need help?
Liz.
The day we came home. And I said, there's this group, and let's try that. Because at that point, I was like, if there's 15 different things I can try, I'm going to try something. I'll try all 15 of them because my head is not screwed on straight right now.
There are still people from this shooting who haven't left the house, who are not back to work. They don't have therapy. They're not going out and getting help.
Dr. Shiva Ghaed is uniquely qualified to give them that help. It's not just her experience working with combat trauma. She was at the Route 91 festival too.
Whether it was divine intervention or just dumb fucking luck, I don't know. But I just found myself there, and I happened to be specialized in PTSD and trauma.
I imagine that when you're talking to fellow survivors of the shooting, that you're talking to them and you're seeing symptoms probably that feel very familiar from your work with combat veterans.
Absolutely. So in terms of treating trauma, trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma. Whether you have been molested as a child or abused as a child, or you have been raped, or you have been in a domestic violence relationship, or in combat, it's all the same. It's about the way that traumatic experience changed your worldview, your belief system, the way that you interpret meaning from things in your life. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what determines whether you will be sick or whether you will recover.
And this last month, I've just been a wreck. It's like I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm always looking over my shoulder. I'm edgy, emotional, irritable. I feel like it's the first week.
If you feel like you're back to the beginning, you're not. I promise you, you're not. Progress and recovery is not a linear path. It's a little up and down as we're going uphill. All right? And that means that you're going to have some low points.
Every time something triggers you, you put yourself right where you are in reality and you say what it really is. And over time, it replaces the trigger. And now when I hear the sounds, I go, oh, yeah, that's a jackhammer. I feel the tightness in my stomach, but I'm not down on the ground sobbing, looking for cover.
Like if we're in battle, I understand, okay, why people die. I guess my thing for the why is that with what I did and where I was in the situation, it would let me know why 4 people had to die in my arms.
I know. And Joe, I can't imagine what that was like for you. I think that what you did to stay with them was amazing. And that was a gift that you gave them. They did not die alone.
Have you seen a therapist about your experience?
I have not.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been open to it, and I am still open if I feel that I need to, but I did what I asked my patients to do, which is to face it and to sit in it and sit with it and power through it and not avoid it. I started the support group, but make no mistake, I needed my community of Route 91 survivors as much as they needed me. And I'm not sure that I could have healed as well and as quickly without them.
1, 2, 3.
Family!
What has to happen for this to never happen again?
I don't think there's an answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't think that anything's going to change. It's not if it's going to happen again, it's when it's going to happen again. That's just the bottom line.
I don't see any reason why, I still will say this, any civilian would ever need an automatic weapon.
But are the laws going to change? No. And is it healthy for us in our healing? No.
We'll never be who we were October 1st at 10:04. We'll never be that person again. We're different people now.
I was surprised at how vocal he was about the fact that he likes beer. And he's had a little bit of difficulty. I mean, he talked about things that happened when he drank. I mean, this is not a man that said that alcohol was that he was perfect with respect to alcohol.
At the White House today, President Trump walked an uncomfortable line defending Brett Kavanaugh and the FBI investigation into the charges against him. Trump insisted that he wasn't trying to limit it.
We don't want to go on to use an expression often used by me, we don't want to go on a witch hunt, do we?
But he also made it clear that he wants it contained.
I want it to be comprehensive. I actually think it's a good thing for Judge Kavanaugh.
Ultimately, Trump said he'd go along with whatever the Senate wants. And this afternoon, one key senator spoke up.
It does no good to have an investigation that just gives us more cover.
The White House needs Jeff Flake's vote, and shortly after he spoke, news broke that the administration had conceded, authorizing the FBI to proceed with the investigation however agents see fit, so long as they wrap up within a week.
The decision to loosen the restrictions on the FBI today means the investigation into Kavanaugh's past could end up sprawling to dozens of field agents across the country, if not more. Tom Baker, a former FBI special agent who once oversaw background investigations like this one, says the FBI knows how to make this work.
It's not unheard of that they'd reopen a background investigation or have to do follow-up investigation. It probably is being run out of the Washington field office. It's probably getting pretty close supervision from FBI headquarters. And the way the FBI works, individual agents doing the investigation can actually send out usually additional leads that they want followed if they come up with somebody along the way. But this has been done before.
And could it be done in a week?
Absolutely.
But what makes this investigation so complicated isn't the lack of time. It's the fact that it's not really a background investigation anymore. Under normal circumstances, a background check into someone hoping to become the next Supreme Court justice would involve a deep dive into their friendships and associations, all the way back to their youth. They're looking for anything that could be considered derogatory information, and they use a wonky acronym to remember it all. Carla B. FAD. Character, associations, reputation, loyalty, ability, biases, financials, alcohol, drugs. What are they looking for in a high-level, deep dive investigation?
There's three things. So character, reputation, and loyalty. So then character. I would say this thing's looking at character somewhat, the person's character.
Would they have asked about past history of alcohol use or abuse?
Yes. In every one of those, yeah, they would have. And that's one thing that's written up.
But they also rely on something else, voluntary interviews. This week's process is different, because it's turning into something closer to a criminal investigation.
And that's what makes it a little complicated. And what happens here is there's a possibility that on some parties may want to even have their lawyer present. And the agents I know doing the investigation won't like that. That's unusual in a background investigation. And often in a background investigation, the information's given in confidence. You can give the people confidentiality.
Former FBI officials I spoke to over the past few days told me there are some obvious things they'd want to look into. A big one? When exactly the party that Christine Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh allegedly attended took place. To try to narrow that down, investigators might want to request the sign-in logs from Columbia Country Club, where Ford says she went swimming the day of the party, or the employment records from the Potomac Safeway, where Kavanaugh's friend Mark Judge worked shifts around that time. But if those organizations don't want to give them up, or if witnesses refuse to talk, investigators don't have search warrants or the subpoena power to make them. That means that even with the expanded mandate, what gets turned in on Friday night might not be very satisfying. It'll be what background investigators consider a finished product, a more detailed list of possible red flags. But it probably won't be what much of the public is hoping for. Do you think a week from now, we in the general public will have closure on this issue?
We'll have the results of this follow-up investigation, I don't think we'll get closure in this kind of thing for a long, long time.
Brett Kavanaugh's nomination is stalled in the Senate, but the Supreme Court kicked off its fall term this morning with a case starring this little amphibian, the dusky gopher frog. They've been on the endangered species list since 2001, and only about 200 adults are left in the wild, all in Mississippi. The case pitted one of the world's largest timber companies, Weyerhaeuser, against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
So we're looking for tadpoles. Even if I get one, that's a good sign.
Jamie Smith is on a research team that raises the frogs in labs and monitors their total population.
One of the main causes for the decline of the dusky gopher frog is habitat loss and degradation because humans decided that we wanted to use that habitat for other purposes.
Gopher frogs used to live in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Now they're only known to breed in 6 ponds in the world.
I know. Life's hard.
Scientists say that to ensure the frog's survival, they would need to be reintroduced in Louisiana, specifically to 1,500 acres that are privately owned, partially by Weyerhaeuser. The Fish and Wildlife Service designated the area as critical habitat, hoping to eventually move the frogs there. That tract has rare wetlands where gopher frogs could thrive, but only with certain changes. The government estimates the designation could cost up to $34 million in lost development income. Weyerhaeuser says that the U.S. can't protect private land if it isn't already equipped to support an endangered species. Protected land, like the area where Jamie and her team work, will only become more important as habitats are damaged by climate change.
It's a critically endangered animal, so every single mortality matters.
Weyerhaeuser v. U.S. asks 2 crucial questions for the future of how we handle those effects. What kinds of land can be protected, and whether and to what extent courts can review the economic impact of safeguarding the environment. By siding with landowners, the justices could restrict the kind of land that can be set aside and make it easier to prioritize profit over conservation.
If the Supreme Court case doesn't rule in our favor, then that will add yet another restriction to an already very restricted system for us to work in.
And it could set a precedent that makes it easier for the Trump administration to roll back parts of the Endangered Species Act. But only 8 justices heard the case this morning, and it's likely that they'll split evenly along ideological lines. That means the lower court's decision would stand, which sided with the frog.
Thousands of Conservative Party supporters are gathering for their annual conference this week in what's supposed to be a moment for policy discussions, self-congratulation and clapping along to speeches about a bright Conservative future. Instead, it's one of the most heated the party's ever seen, and there's only one thing anybody's talking about: there's still no Brexit deal.
Some people say that no deal is unthinkable. Wrong. What is unthinkable is that this government or any other British government could be bullied by the threat of some kind of economic embargo into signing a one-sided deal against our country's interests.
Prime Minister Theresa May is fighting for her political life right now, and whether or not she can restore unity among the people gathering here will ultimately decide her own future, the shape of Brexit, and the future of the country. That's not going to be easy. The EU has already rejected her so-called Chequers plan for how Brexit should work, and even if she can eventually win over European leaders, an increasingly vocal wing of her own party, led by her former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, says her plan just isn't good enough anyway. Andrew Bridgen is one of the ringleaders of the plot to remove May from office.
The reason I campaigned for leave was I think that the people in our country should have the ability to elect and vote against people who make their laws.
Boris for PM?
I think Boris has many, many good attributes, not the least of which he is very, very electable and he's a winner.
When?
When there's a vacancy.
When do you think that'll be?
I don't know. I would like Theresa May to change her policy on Brexit, chuck Chequers, adopt a super Canada free trade deal strategy. But if she won't do that, I mean, my letter of no confidence is already in.
So what next? May is hoping to seal some kind of deal with the EU at a crucial summit later this month. But the Brexiteer rebels, who want a much cleaner break than she's proposing, might find a surprising ally, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. They want to topple the government and know that voting against May's plans is the best way to do it. That leaves Britain hurtling towards a no deal. If enough members support a motion of no confidence in May, they could then force her to quit, potentially clearing the path for Boris Johnson. Sam Gyimah is one of May's government ministers trying to defend against that. We've spoken to Conservative members of Parliament here who are actively telling us that they are trying to remove the Prime Minister. What's going on?
Well, the one thing I would say is that we are either united as a party or we'll be united in our defeat, watching Jeremy Corbyn walk into Downing Street.
Will she survive until Christmas?
I think the Prime Minister will survive, yes.
Until when, though?
I mean, this talk has been going on for so long. I don't see anyone necessarily putting their neck out. You know, they're criticising the deal, you know, they're doing this, but...
There's a neck being put out which has a big yellow head of hair on the top of it.
I'd like to take Boris at his word that is the deal that he's concerned about, and it's not about his own ambition.
I cover launches as a freelance photographer. I've shot quite a few rockets since I started, the Atlas V, as well as the Delta IV and the Minotaur 4 rocket. Bloomberg Businessweek did license an image from me for use on their special space issue cover. On Instagram, I have a little over 40,000 followers. For me, having Elon Musk personally share an image of mine on his own Instagram was absurd. It's really indescribable. It's very, very cool. I'm gonna have to get a call from parents. Hey, what's up? I'm John Kraus. I'm an 18-year-old photographer here on Florida's Space Coast, and I work as a photographer covering rocket launches as a member of the media. I feel like it's a viable career option, and that's why I've decided to go all in on it. Space Coast is the stretch of land where I live and what people kind of refer to as where we launch most of our rockets from the United States. Lately, the launch cadence has grown exponentially almost in that we see launches 2, 3, 4 times a month. Creating images of them so regularly is great. You staying up for the launch?
I am.
Awesome.
Very excited. Yeah.
Well, I got camera set up in a few hours.
See ya.
See you later. Love you.
Love you too.
Tomorrow night's launch is a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launch of a commercial satellite called Telstar 18 Vantage. I have access with what I do to something that not a lot of people do. So I really want to show what the space program's doing. I want to share how great space is to the everyday person. We're on our way to Cape Canaveral Air Force Station to visit the launch pad and set up the remote cameras at the launch pad. So it should be pretty cool. So you can see this is pretty sturdy. No wind is going to knock this over. Just one stake gives you enough to keep the tripod secure. So my first experience with the photography came, I almost don't even want to, okay, I'll tell you what I did. I did like stop motion stuff of like Legos when I was 7. And I would say I really got into photography when I actually bought my first DSLR when I was 15. And shortly thereafter is when I started covering rocket launches. Yeah, that looks good. There's no launch photographer handbook that they hand out at your first launch that lets you capture images perfectly. So a lot of it's trial and error. Telephoto camera's working. Wide camera's working, so good to go for launch. Let's do it. There's a large range of ages of people that cover these launches, and I'm very much on the younger side. I see them as peers, and I think I'm respected as a fellow peer, even though I'm younger.
Good luck tonight, mate.
Thanks, you as well. While I am setting cameras at the launch pad, I'm more focused on my off-site shot, which will be about 10, 12 miles north of the Cape. I will be wading into the water, and there could be gators, there could be snakes, but just gonna have to suck it up. I want the shot. I really do.
How deep are you going in the water?
I'd say a foot, maybe a little more.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what you got to watch for.
I do.
Alligators and water moccasins.
Yeah.
I brought a little tool just in case.
What do you bring?
I brought a fillet knife about that long.
I thought you were gonna say like a 45 or something.
Just be careful.
Yeah. Oh, I am not confident. Woo! Little deep. Okay.
I'm looking for gator eyes.
As a photographer, what I like most about a rocket launch is that you only get one shot. Okay, that should do for now. It's a game of compromise. I'm gonna have to take what I can get here. Once that rocket's gone, your shot's gone. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it. There's a lot of technical side with photography, planning what you want to capture. But really, once it happens, it happens.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
There it is.
There's a launch. Woo! Wow. Never gets old.
How do you like that?
Oh, wow. Full arc, baby. Woo!